What's going on, guys? My name is Matt, and in one of my recent videos I showed you guys an amazing deal I got for an $85 full gaming PC I picked up off of Craigslist. Now, all the parts worked fine, but my only complaint was that the GPU was ridiculously loud, and I asked you guys if you wanted to see me open it up and try to fix it, and what I saw in the comment section was that you guys really wanted to see me do it. So in today's video, I'm going to be tearing this guy down, an EVGA GTX 660 Ti, and do my best to fix the noise problem. Now, just for reference, here's what it sounded like at idle. And at idle, the GPU was staying around 38 degrees Celsius. To stress the GPU, I used Unigine Heaven Benchmark, and here's what it sounds like under load. As you can see, this thing is pretty loud, and temp-wise under load it was sitting around 80 degrees Celsius. So what could be causing an issue like this? Well, it could be a number of things. Old thermal paste could be hindering the cooler's ability to dissipate heat and causing the fan to run faster. There could be stuff obstructing airflow like dust, or worst case scenario, something could be going wrong with the fan itself, like a bad bearing. So I decided to tear this thing down, replace the thermal paste, clean out any dust, and reinstall everything, making sure everything's tightened down all the way, as a loose screw in the fan assembly could also introduce noise. Now, tearing down a GPU isn't super complicated. If you have an open air card, it's usually as simple as removing 4 screws and unplugging the fan connector to gain access to the GPU die and heatsink, but with a blower style cooler like this one, it's a little more complicated. To tear the whole thing down, I need to remove over 12 screws, making sure to label where each one goes for reassembly. Once all the screws were out, I could remove the GPU PCB from the cooler shroud and then remove the heatsink from the PCB. Now would be a good time to talk about all the parts that make up this graphics card. The first is the PCB, which has the GPU die itself, the GDDR5 memory, power delivery, and the I/O. Cooling the GPU is the copper and aluminum heatsink, and there's a secondary heatsink that attaches with push pins to cool the VRMs. This is the fan that pushes air over the heatsink, and this is the shroud that helps direct airflow through the heatsink and out the back of the case, and together they make a full graphics card. So with the whole thing tore down, the first thing I did was clean the GPU die and the heatsink using alcohol wipes, trying to get as much of the old dry thermal paste off as I could. I then decided to dust everything off, and I was surprised to see that for as dusty as the outside of the card was, the inside really wasn't too bad, but I did my best to get rid of all the dust off of the heat sinks and the fan. It was then time to put on new thermal paste. Unlike the IHS of a CPU, when applying thermal paste to a graphics card, you want to spread it out first before reinstalling the cooler to make sure there's even coverage across the entire die, which I did using a piece of cardboard. Once this was done, I reinstalled the heatsink, making sure to tighten it down in a cross pattern to apply even pressure across the die. I then reinstalled the VRM heatsink, and ideally I would have used a new thermal pad, but the old one looked to be in fine condition, so I just used that and reinstalled it by pressing in 2 spring-loaded push pins. I then reattached the fan to the fan mount and made sure this was really snug, as when disassembling, one of the screws seemed to be a little loose, which could have introduced extra noise. Once this was done, I attached the fan assembly to the PCB, then the shroud over top, making sure to reinstall all of the screws in their correct locations, and finally reinstalled the I/O cover, which I probably didn't need to remove in the first place, but it didn't hurt to. Once this was done, the GPU was ready to be retested, and let me tell you, this cleaning was a complete success. The fan was now so much quieter under load and idle. Here's a before and after of idle noise. And here's a before and after of idle temps. Now, for the real test, here's a before and after of load noise. And here is the before and after of load temps. Load and idle temps didn't improve a crazy amount, but that's just because the fan isn't needing to ramp up nearly as much to maintain its ideal temperature. This means if I want, I could overclock this GPU a pretty fair amount for a noticeable bump in gaming performance. So would I recommend you guys do something similar? Well, if you buy or have an older GPU, I would highly recommend changing the thermal paste, as that alone can greatly improve temps and noise even if the GPU isn't that dusty. Just be careful, take your time, and you should be fine. I definitely wish I had recorded a before and after of fan speed, but as you can probably hear from the before and afters, there is a very noticeable difference. I actually think the fan noise is about the same under load now as it was at idle before. Like I said before, I think there now is a good amount of room for overclocking, so if you guys would like to see a general overclocking guide where I try and push this GPU's performance with overclocking, let me know in the comments section down below. So overall, I'm super happy with the results of opening up and cleaning this GPU and would recommend it to anyone with an older graphics card. So yeah guys, I think this wraps this video up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up, as well as consider subscribing for more PC and tech related content in the future. And as always, this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.